You're listening to the Reinvest Podcast, where each Tuesday we show business owners and entrepreneurs how to diversify into real estate by equipping you with the tools and tactics to build generational wealth. Your hosts, Garrett Gatton and Seth Ciminillo. Hey guys, we are on another episode of the Reinvest Podcast. You are reinvesting in yourself through real estate investing.
I just want to say in the Midwest, we are in full throttle of spring and warm weather, and it feels great. Everybody else that just has warm weather year round, I don't like you, but here we're finally back. We're out of the blizzards. We're out of most of the rainy season, and we are in good weather.
It's funny how there's a lot of psychological habits that are associated with weather. Like people are buying houses.
Everybody came out to play, man.
Yeah.
Investors,
money,
retail buyers, sellers. Sellers were like, "Oh, great! Now I'm ready to sell. Now that it's not winter, because obviously no one wants to move when it's like 2 degrees outside."
Right. There's actually a strategy behind buying a house in the winter if you want to get some kind of a discount.
Yeah.
Which is, that's why you work with a good real estate agent. So anyway, okay, what happens when you grow your business, your real estate portfolio, to the point where there is a greater claim on your time? Here's some symptoms that you might realize. Things are falling through the cracks, deferred maintenance on your properties. You
always have a running checklist.
Yeah.
You never finish it. It never gets done.
You have now reached kind of the limit of what your systems allow for or what your time allows for in being a real estate investor or a business owner. So then it's time to level up. So that time constraint leads you to either burnout and failure, or the more positive side of this, learning how to delegate and automate so you can free up your time without losing control.
And as we're just saying this, even before we dive into what we're going to say, there's a great book on this from Dan Martell called Buy Back Your Time. Great book. I listened to the audiobook. Definitely in the same vein of what we're talking about, because everyone's going to reach that limit.
Yep.
Everyone does at some point.
I remember being in college and being like, man, I think I've got it. Like I was busy, but I also was unmarried, had no kids, wasn't really working a full-time job. I was just kind of dedicated to like studies and ministry, and it was busy. Again, I had no idea what busyness was. Once you start taking on responsibility and ongoing commitments outside of just professional stuff, you have to figure out how to operate at a higher capacity as a human. And investing is the same way. If you want to keep investing and growing, you're going to have to reinvent your systems and yourself. Like, I don't even know how many times. It feels like multiple times a year.
Yeah.
You're having to reinvent. So we're going to go through a couple of points here. Why doing everything yourself slowing you down? You're going to get out of that mindset. What do you delegate first? Like, what's the first thing that needs to go off of your plate that's going to have the biggest impact? We're going to talk about building your dream team. Who are these people, these resources going to help you get there? Top tools to automate the busy work. We're going to give you some suggestions on some services you could be utilizing that's going to help you do more with less. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to delegate without losing control, which I think every entrepreneur probably has that concern.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why most people don't delegate or don't get help, because they can't let go.
Yeah, but the cost is too steep to maintain control of everything, because you're going to miss out on a lot.
So let's start back at the top. Why is doing everything yourself slowing you down?
So I think when you start out in your business or in investing, you're strapped for time, money. I mean, there's just a lot of limitations. So, or maybe you have time but not money. So you're having to learn everything yourself. You're very hands-on. And that's good, I think, because it builds this framework of understanding the process of investing. You need to kind of know, like, how do you buy a property? How do you rent it? How do you renovate it? How do you go through the financing? You need to have that understanding. You can't stay there though, because it's simple math. How many hours? 168 hours in a week.
I don't know. You must have had that off the top of your head.
I think it is. You don't need to go to your calculator. Just trust me. And so everybody's given the same amount of time. You sprinkle in your commitments outside of that. The more you have your hands directly on something, there's an opportunity cost that we don't see. Starting out, you don't see the opportunity cost because there's just not a lot of opportunity around you. But what happens then when the opportunity does start to become more visible? Right. Just know you're missing out on things when you stay doing those low-level tasks.
Well, and I think a lot of times, too, especially in the real estate realm, when someone buys their first rental, they think they're saving money by doing all the things themselves. And in some sense, maybe you are, and maybe it's certain things, but there's certain things that you're probably holding on to that you need to either systematize, delegate, or something, because really you're just you're building a business that's not a business you'd want to be in as you scale. And so you kind of got to have the future in mind when you're starting your real estate portfolio, or when you're starting your business. What kind of business, what kind of things do you want to end up doing down the line 5 years from now in your business? And if you don't want to do it 5 years from now, you should start figuring out now, even when you're small, how do you delegate those things, and how do you build the systems and build the bridge to where you want to go?
Let me just hit you between the eyes listening to this right now. If you have not run a scenario of paying for property management with your current portfolio and what that would do to your cash flow, then you're kidding yourself. Because you have to treat your properties like a business. And imagine that you had such a sizable portfolio that it wasn't economical for you to manage your properties anymore. And you had to create a property management company that's going to need to have income because it's its own business, or you're going to have third-party management. And a lot of investors, because they maintained that self-management style for so long, have a hard time jumping into third-party property management because they can't wrap their head around that loss of cash flow, which in reality should have never really been seen as your profit as an owner. Yeah. It should have been a line item on your expenses for operating your properties. So you will bottleneck. You just will. And I think most people probably listening to this podcast don't want to stop at 1 to 3 rentals. You want to continue to grow that portfolio to achieve the time freedom and the wealth creation that real estate offers. So you got to get yourself out of some of those seats. And we're going to talk about that.
We've completely overcommitted ourselves.
Yep.
We're wearing every hat and we're doing every job. What would you suggest someone delegates first to start alleviating some of the stress, burden, burnout?
Well, I think look at the tasks and the things that you have your hands on, A, that are time intensive, and B, someone else could do them better. See, that's the thing, is we think that we have the illusion of control, but the ironic part is there's things that you have your hands on in your business right now that you're doing like a D or a C job. And you could pay someone to do a much better job that probably wouldn't cost as much as you think.
Yeah.
There were certain tasks, I think on the accounting side of things, that we
would be terrible at that.
Holy crap. Like, I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to spend 3 times more doing it the wrong way than paying someone the right way. And when you look at the money that we're paying somebody to do the ongoing accounting for the mobile home park on a monthly basis, it would not make sense for us to have our hands on it.
No.
It just wouldn't. So there's low-hanging fruit like that you could outsource. It's going to be a better product. You're going to rely on someone else's system they've already created.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's going to be less money.
Think of things like the bookkeeping, property management. We've already discussed that. Lead screening, a transaction coordinator for your business if you start to do some volume. I mean, there are people that probably know how to do those things better than you. And in the book I mentioned, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, he has like a framework that he works through to determine of like, what are the things that you should be delegating? What are the things you should be hiring out? And it's like, he has kind of a quadrant, if you can think of 4 squares, and it's like things you're good at and that you like doing. So there's the things that you should keep, obviously. And then, the things that you're good at but you don't like, they kind of drain your energy. Well, maybe you're holding on to that and that's the last thing to go, but you should start getting rid of that soon. And then you have the other side of the quadrant where it's like the things that you're bad at and that you don't like doing. You need to hire that out because you're bad at it and you don't like doing it. And then there's the things that you're bad at, but you like doing it. You still need to hire it out. You shouldn't be doing it. You're bad at it. So if you really start to list down everything you do in your business, you're going to be like, oh yeah, those are some of the things where it's like, I kind of enjoy mowing, but maybe you just suck at mowing. Just hire it out. You shouldn't waste your time on it. And so make a list and start to like write out those things. What are the things that you need to be doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe even assign a dollar amount to it. If you establish a bench line of what your time is worth, it also helps make those decisions. Realistically, everybody's time, you would like your time to be worth $100 an hour or $200 an hour, but maybe starting out, it's $50 an hour. Like if I take my time and apply it in another area that's going to generate me money, it's going to monetize in this way. And then that helps you kind of back in and say, man, every hour I'm spending on a task that I really shouldn't be is costing me this much money. You might realize paying for that service would be less. So those are some rules of thumb, I think, as you're thinking about what to delegate and offloading. From a case study perspective, describe just with some of the implementations we've made, the benefit on the other side you didn't see fully.
Yeah, I mean, so when we started looking for help, we ended up hiring an executive assistant that was a virtual assistant. She's from the Philippines, and she does a great job. And we've talked about her before on the podcast. One thing I didn't realize even when we were seeking that out, I was just thinking all the stuff I have in front of me, I need help with. So I needed to get some of my tasks on someone else's plate, and it made financial sense to hire a virtual assistant. Well, what I didn't realize is once I started getting her tasks, it like flipped a switch in my brain to say, what other things should I not be doing? Whether I don't like doing them or I'm not good at them, what are the things I can train her on that if she can do it even as 80% as well as me, it's going to make sense for her to start doing those tasks. And so it kind of like unlocked my brain to think about all these things in our business. And then not only that, it gave us more capacity to take on more work and give her more responsibility. And it's been a weird thing to kind of work through the last year and a half as we've been talking about this in the research phase, and now we're actually have been doing it for a year. I probably, if I had to take back all the tasks she was doing, it's probably 20 to 25 hours of work that I would have to do specifically.
A week. Yeah.
And once you can wrap your head around trusting someone else and training them, whether it's a virtual assistant or it's an in-person assistant, it's going to be a game changer for your business. And maybe that's not even someone that works for you, and it's, the third-party companies, property management, the bookkeepers. If you can trust these people with your business, and it's going to allow you to go farther and faster because you're going to be able to go after the things that make you more money.
All of these things we're talking about is the transition from having a job to a business, because a business can operate with less and less of your direct involvement. So this is a great segue into who do you need on your team to accomplish this delegation and automation. One of the things I've been really surprised at is how software is really, you need to see us like software as an employee.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it is. If a software is not saving you time and automating your business, then you probably don't have the right one. We, for our agent business.
Yeah, we pay a lot of money for our software.
We have a part-time employee that we pay to the tune of probably $800 a month. And that's how we view it.
Yeah.
And we're able, the capacity, it's like having someone working in your business.
If I have our CRM that we pay for that runs a lot of our business, I wouldn't be running the business. It would just be a mess. And so, yeah, if you look at software as an employee, it's like sometimes you don't want to pull the trigger because it costs a lot. But I'm just telling you, if you can learn how to use it and it's actually the right piece of software that's going to help systematize your business, it's going to take you, leaps and bounds further than where you thought you were going to go.
On the contractor side, it's a relevant team member to have because you're remodeling and you have maintenance needs on properties. One of the things that gets overlooked there is you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. And here's what I mean in this context. I see a lot of guys burn through contractors. And it's just kind of like, it's just the way they operate their business. You're always squeezing a contractor to where it's hard for them to make money, and eventually they burn out, they go do something else, and you have to start over. I think there's something to be said about paying a little more and having a long-term relationship with a contractor who you can establish a system of its own with that individual that is going to save you time and ultimately money in the long run. So from a contractor perspective, you really do need to have some good running hot sheet of subcontractors and general contractors that you like to work with. Build that rapport, and then it's going to be easier for you to ask for the discount once you've established yourself as a repeat customer for them. We've talked about VAs.
Yep, VAs, third-party companies could be on your team. Like we mentioned, the property managers, bookkeepers, accountants, real estate lawyers, whoever those people are. I mean, get a running list, keep track of them, start building the relationship with these guys, and it's going to help you offload these little things that you shouldn't be doing in your business to the professionals.
Let me hit you with this. I didn't even know this existed, but on LinkedIn, somebody had reached out to me as a way to kind of solicit business. And there is a phrase or a job out there called fractional CFO. So essentially, there's these accountants and these CPAs, because everything's so digitized now, they can offer you like a CFO role type responsibilities to your company, but they're fractional, meaning they may do it for 6 or 7 other businesses instead of having one person on payroll. Most investors aren't going to pay for a dedicated CFO, but you maybe would want that in your company to handle the in-house accounting. So it's a way for a small business to kind of swing a big stick, and that it does exist out there. So look into that. That might be something to consider as you look at the bookkeeping side of things. Okay, what are some very concrete tools that people can use to automate the busy work for their business?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of we'll try to get specific for people just to get their brain flowing that way. CRMs, there's a lot of CRMs that have really specific automations in them to like just help take care of some of the busy work or remind you of tasks or whatever. So that's one. Your property management software, we use Rent Ready. Again, I mean, you can, it advertises your rental for you. It intakes the leads for you. It gives them the application for you. And so you get a filled out application at the end of the day. And it just saves all those other steps. If you were doing it yourself, if you just had an email and a phone number out there, you would have to intake the lead. Then you'd have to get them the application. You'd have to follow up about the application. Don't do that. Just pay for it. It's going to save you a lot of time, and it's really not that expensive. Another one that we really like to use is Calendly. If you are someone that is out there cutting it up with people and making appointments, Calendly can link with your Google Calendar or probably Outlook as well, and or your Apple Calendar. But it's a scheduling software, and it just saves a ton of time, a ton of email. It cuts down all the emails back and forth of like, what time works for you? What day? Well, next week. Okay, what time next week? They just can get on your Calendly, and they can schedule a time that you have available in your calendar. And it cuts down on a ton of time. That's super practical. I would definitely get that one if you don't have it already.
There's a task management software called Trello. And I remember using this back in like the mid-2000s, but they've come a long way with it. And essentially, it's a way for you to monitor where a task is at in a workflow. Just because you just get inundated with so many different things. So some people have a proverbial list, and a list is great because it kind of is a placeholder for what needs done. But Trello gives you an actual workflow of like what is the next objective or the next iteration of this task, or what needs done before I can get this done. And it's just a very visual dashboard related thing. So I would look into that if you're somebody who kind of nerds out on that side of things. Document management, I just figured that this morning. Google Docs now has an e-signature feature. So I haven't really looked into that a whole lot, but we use Dotloop for all of our online e-signature stuff. Think leases, think contracts, promissory notes, anything legal that doesn't require a notary but does require a signature. You need to have that because more and more tenants want the option to do this kind of stuff if they're moving into an area, and it's going to allow you to capture people. I collected a security deposit, and I had them sign a lease virtually, and I got a unit leased up just recently by doing that. Because I was able to move quickly, and I had those resources at my disposal. Okay, last thing and this is a big one, how do you delegate without losing control?
Yeah, and how do you make sure that what you're paying for, whether it's software or people,
is helping
and actually making you more money?
I'm going to say this. This is a phrase that came from one of the Jim Collins' books. Shoot a bullet, not a cannonball. When you're trying something new, you're always kind of in this research and development phase of starting a business, and you're trying new endeavors, and you're trying to do it in a way that is the least resource intensive. And so there are ways where you can shoot a bullet to see, hey, is this going to work? Well, let's maybe get an intern, or let's do a free trial on a software, or let's try this service out for a certain amount of time.
So how it's worked for me as we've begun hiring employees is doing weekly check-ins. And, on the front end, it was a lot more than weekly. I mean, during the training and all that stuff, that just has to happen. But weekly check-ins, quick 30-minute, 20-minute Zoom call usually, fielding questions in that meeting, following up on tasks. It's kind of just a quick get-together. We have software called Hubstaff. That is a employee management software. It tracks how active they are on their computer, it takes screen captures of what they're doing on their computer. It's how they clock in and out to track their time. And then it's also how I execute their payroll. And so that's another one of those softwares where it saves a ton of time, a ton of management, and it's just all there at a moment's notice. I can pop it up, look in it, check in, and know with confidence that stuff is getting done. They're working on the correct things. It shows me how productive they were on their computer. And it just makes it so easy. And it kind of takes that question mark out of like, well, did they even do anything today?
Right. And that accountability, right? Trust but verify. You want to have a culture of trust in your organization, but then there needs to be just a healthy accountability. A lot of that, the softwares provide that. So hopefully this is a really concrete way of why you need to be thinking, how am I going to delegate and elevate, right? It's not delegate to abdicate so that you're just checked out, not present. Your business will fail.
You gotta elevate. You gotta figure out how you're going to get yourself to produce more and to work on those tasks that are not making you $10, $20, and $30 an hour, but are making you $100, $500, and $1,000 an hour.
Well said. Well said. All right, we're going to go into our quote of the week. So this was brought to us by none other than Michael Scott.
He's a good guy.
Who quoted Wayne Gretzky, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." I know I picked this one. We've talked about it a lot.
It's true, though.
In jest, but it is true.
It is true.
I think about the massive leaps forward in my business development or my success, and it comes from taking initiative. Because I think when you're an entrepreneur, you're always batting out of your league a little bit. You're always trying to step into a bigger network, a higher kind of sphere of influence, a larger transaction size, a new level of sophistication in business. You're always looking kind of from the street into the store through the window, and you're saying, how can I get there? And you got to take initiative to get there. You got to shoot your shot, which is kind of a popular way to say it.
Well, even if we bring it back to delegating and creating automation, it's like you think it's impossible until you take a leap and you try some stuff. And, it costs money. It costs time to set it up. The software costs money. Having an employee costs money. And it almost just seems like too big of a barrier to entry, but you're never going to find out if you don't try it. So I never thought I would save the 15 to 20 to 25 hours now that I'm saving now. And it has freed me up to work on other areas of our business and continue to grow.
You have said this before, and it's kind of another way to say that, but don't say no for them.
Yeah, that came from a Grant Cardone book.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Don't say no for them.
Sometimes the conversation, you've already had it in your head, and it stopped before it ever started.
Yeah.
Because you said, well, they'd never go for that. So whatever it is today, shoot a shot. And when you fail or you don't get the outcome you want, that's okay. Shoot it again. It's a statistics game. You put it up there, you're going to get it. As always, excited that you joined us for another episode of the Reinvest Podcast. If you want to learn how you can use your hard-earned capital to diversify into real estate, Go to our website, reinvestcapital.us, and shoot us a message. Move farther, reach higher, and grow deeper.